Sedona Fire District Governing Board meeting is called to order. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. A moment of silence for all of the firefighters, first responders, police officers, and those serving in our services who protect our country.
Take a moment to remember the 5 firefighters and 4 police officers that passed since our last board meeting.
Thank you. If you could do the roll call.
Neil,
Here.
Cooperman,
Here.
Forget,
Present.
Christensen, here, Waldrop.
Here.
Thank you. Chief and Mr. Bulger, we have a budget workshop, I understand.
Yes.
We're just getting connected here.
Oh, you wanted on
Oh, yeah, yeah. Or should I join the teams and then share my screen? Okay, give us 1 second here.
No problem.
That'd be cleaner.
All right.
I'm very encouraging.
No. And then just drag that screen over, that team screen over. There, perfect. Perfect. All right. Well, good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. It's time to start a fun, exciting process of budget development. So kind of get us started here. Just a few highlights today. We don't have a lot of information to go over today. We're very early on in the process. We got our assessed value numbers last week. So we could talk a little bit about that, talk a little about kind of our other funding sources and how we as a fire district are able to pay our bills. Talk a little bit about our budget schedule and just kind of see from the board's perspective what are the desires for this budget process this year. So look at and start off with revenue for next year. As I mentioned, we did get our assessed value and we saw a total overall increase of 5.8%, which is pretty healthy at our current tax rate, meaning no change to tax rates for the homeowners. It'd be 1.18 million in additional revenue for next year. So that's very positive. It was not the same good news for our friends in Maricopa County, but yeah, they were, they're seeing 2%, 2.5% to 2 to 3% in any area that didn't have a lot of growth. So fortunately, our assessor saw the value and the growth in values and assessed us appropriately. One of the things that, kind of I like to talk about at this point is really our limitations as a fire district when it comes to funding. Tax levy is our primary revenue source, but there's restrictions on it. One, that tax rate, that $2.70, we can only increase it to a maximum of $3.75. Now, obviously, we've got a significant amount of capacity. We're very fortunate that we have a high assessed value. So we don't need to creep up to that cap to be able to levy enough money to pay for our expenses.
What, not to put you on the spot, but of your client base, how many are at the cap? Roughly.
Roughly, I would say probably 60% are probably at the tax cap, or near it, probably actually say near it 75% are at or near the tax cap. And again, I've heard in the past, I think that kind of rhetoric's kind of died down over time, but people are like, oh, well, you're capped out. You must not be managing yourself very well. But it's not how the math works. Our costs are the same, whether we're in Sedona or Sun City. Okay. But that underlying value that we use to multiply by the rate is significantly different. So, for us to levy $10 million, it may only be $1 on our tax rate. Whereas for another area with a lower assessed value, it may be $2 on their tax rate for them to levy the same amount of dollars. And so, that's why this kind of cap that we have to live within is pretty arbitrary, and it adds financial constraints to organizations that, really, they just need they do need to be able to get a fair share of tax revenue in to be able to fund their operation. Another big limitation we have is Prop 117, which was passed by the voters a few years ago. Actually, now we're probably pushing up on almost 10 years. Time flies when you're having fun. And what that did is that set our baseline for our valuation at the limited property value. So full cash obviously moves more with the markets, and limited property value is a lagging indicator. What'll happen is that growth is limited to 5% on that limited property value. Well, you may say, Gabe, how did we see 5.8%? Because that 5% limit is on existing property, but new property gets added to the tax roll at their full value. So that's why, we've been fortunate the last couple of years. We've seen more than 5% because of not only strong underlying values, but then you add new growth on top of that.
We have two counties. Were they somewhat similar near that 5.8, or was one a lot different than the other?
They were pretty close. I don't have that exact number in front of me, but I'll make sure I have that for you next time.
That's okay, but pretty close. Huh?
Pretty close, yep.
Very good.
Yep. Obviously we get a lot more from Yavapai than we do, Coconino, but yeah. So that's kind of that tax piece. The non-tax piece is things like our ambulance revenues. We still have some telecom rents. Wildland revenue is a big one. We also get prevention fees, which I know our newly minted fire marshal is going to be working on revised fee schedule, even actually doing some things in improved processes within that revenue stream, especially when we look at areas that are seeing growth. A lot of those plan reviews are good revenue sources for districts. Donations is another small area. And then lately, with where prevailing interest rates are at, with what our cash balance is at, we've seen very healthy revenues come in from our investment earnings, or I say investment, but really it's interest income from the counties. The county invests our money. It's predominantly in all cash type instruments, so money markets, bonds, CDs, and that's how we generate kind of investment income. So those are really the main drivers of our revenue, not, again, material changes that I'm anticipating for next budget cycle, other than, again, starting off with a very positive number on the assessed value side.
Are you anticipating any trickle-down effect from the federal government's cutbacks and changes?
So I was actually on a call today specific to the wildland piece, because there is some discussion on some cutting of funding, but what it sounds like is they're more focused on cutting some of these crews. These basically the Forest Service has wildland firefighting crews. There's some discussion on cutting those crews and focusing more on local resources. So if anything, we may see an increase in deployment requests if that's the case. I think the real concern is what is the future of our federal grants and things like that we've seen, and how much are those going to get cut going forward with this administration, and how many are going to continue.
That's what I want to hit on. My mindset right now is we're going to be real conservative about depending on grant funding this year, and not really lean heavy into anything because it's too much up in the air right now. And then to Gabe's point, I anticipate, we have a couple meetings in the next few weeks on the seasonal outlook, but everybody's anticipating an early season and an early monsoon. And I think internally, we're gonna be prepared for an environment where we have to do more to augment local resourcing and be prepared for that. That was one of the reasons to not push our normal hiring to fall and do it in the spring to fill some vacancies, so we have that availability. And then more so concerning to me is the state level stuff, the 6 or 7 bills to do what we don't know what's going to happen to the CON process, how they register ambulances in the state. And it's all over the place right now. So it could be little to no to huge impact. It just, we won't know till we see which bills push forward, but it could be a return to the mother jugs and speed of the 1970s with a free market where you see 3-4 ambulance companies fly by night come into town and do stuff. And we just don't know yet. And the difficulty is, and I'll speak with Buzz's report, is all of his resources at DHS, Arizona Department of Health, have evaporated. So we really need to be prepared and cautious about how that goes, because you can't get answers from DHS because all the answer makers have disappeared.
Well, there's no institutional knowledge, as Chief kind of mentioned, and it seems like one of the pushes that I kind of heard on the DHS side as well is they didn't really enjoy how good of relationships they had with other groups within other CON holders than others. And so I think we're going to see a much more bureaucratic process and less, hey, can you just pick up the phone and let me know what's going on too. So
yeah, we primarily, Buzz, have really established some really good relationships, and that's what it's about, right? Is the relationships, and that's all evaporated. And it's all over the map. It could be a free for all on rates where a private ambulance could come in here and look at our DHS approved rate. There could be no more DHS approved rates. It's just a bet market value type scenario. We just don't know what's going to happen with the ambulance market. So that's on our radar.
Yeah.
That could have a significant budget impact to the negative or positive.
Yes. What approximately what percentage?
Well, it's a little over $2 million impact if we lost a ton of our ambulance revenue. It's just so hard to give you a number because every one of the bills changes the market in a different way. So one could just be inter-facilities, one could be the totality of the system. They're so broad, all the different bills. It's just which one surfaces will determine. And there may be some protections for us because although our ambulances keep busy from a private ambulance for profit standpoint, where it's not a market somebody would want to jump into, I don't think, because we don't have the extreme volumes of Maricopa County. But a large investment group that owns a huge ambulance company could come in and undercut to eventually take over the region. I mean, I hate to be a Debbie Downer, but at the end of the day, last year they had 2 CON bills that would impact service. They both were shot down. The two were reintroduced this year with better language, plus 4 or 5 more. So we don't know where it's going to land, but all of the lobbying bodies, the PFFA, Arizona Fire Chiefs, Arizona Fire Districts, Arizona Ambulance Association, all have a high level of confidence that something's passing.
Just to flip back to the federal side for a minute, what I'm hearing is more potential demands on local resources. And it seems to me, knowing Washington as I do, that they will pay more slowly. And so we're going to be on the front end then of providing. Now, that's in our wildland revenue, which is not, as I understand it, in the revenue line for us. It's not the main part of the budget.
Yeah, so that brings up a good point. So especially with all of kind of the newer board members and refreshing the existing ones is, so we do get we have ups and down years, but historically we see a significant amount of revenue come from wildland deployments. But our philosophy and the way we budget because there's no guarantee to that revenue, we could have a season, a normally, wet season, and there's not a lot of deployments. Or there's internal reasons why we can't deploy. And so it's a volatile revenue source for us. So when we budget for wildland revenue, we budget for our deployment related expenses. So that's paying for our people to go out on deployment, the travel for them to go out, all of that type of cost of actually sending that person out. And then we have kind of our net profit, so to speak, which is typically we see around 25 to 30% margin on our wildland deployments. And really the way we make profit on those is due to our equipment. There's a daily fee we charge for our apparatus that goes out. And so that's kind of that revenue piece, so to speak, that we make on wildland. We budget all of that to reserves. So essentially there's nothing within our line item budget that pays for, our primary mission that's dependent on that wildland revenue. So if we have a quiet season and we don't deploy, nothing within our budget, we don't say, okay, chief, sorry, no legal services this year because. So that's kind of the way we budget, our philosophy on it. That way, if there is some kind of disruption in it, it doesn't impact our day-to-day operations.
But to your point, if we have an April, May heavy season and the feds are slow to pay and we don't see that revenue until October, November, then you'll see some spikes that'll be frightening, but it's manageable with the reserves we have.
Yeah, we'll be providing some line of credits for the federal government at that point, basically.
That's a better way to say what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
It's exactly what we would be doing.
Yeah.
So the numbers will look disturbing, but knowing what it'd just be delayed revenue.
Unfortunately, the state does have that fund that they fast pay. And then so the way it works here in the state is we submit a bill to the state, they approve it. Once that bill's approved, we're paid within 2 weeks. So they have been fast paid, but this year they ran out of money in the fund. So once, they run out of money, then then they wait to get paid back from the feds before they fast pay again. And I don't know, Bill, if you remember if anybody remembers what that fund's at right now. I want to say 20 million or something like that. So busy season, it can go pretty quickly.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the revenue piece? Not much here on significant budget numbers at this point. We did get our increase in PSPRS of 3.3%. ASRS, on the other hand, has had a small decrease of a 0.27. And just for reference, these are contribution rates, not percentage of expense. So at our current payroll, it's about a $300,000 hit. So unfortunately, we did take a bit of a hit on just our pension costs before we did anything with budget. But, again, looking at that revenue growth number, how we've performed, I think we'll be able to manage that as we kind of work through. Chief is working with labor on MOU negotiations. The other two big numbers that we really weighed on that really drive our budget is our health insurance and our workers' comp. And I've not heard anything on the health insurance piece yet, but workers' comp I have heard looks like we're going to be a flat year on workers' comp. So if we do adjust, it'll just be because of increases in underlying payroll.
Trying to keep that workers' comp flat. We'll see what happens.
We did just kind of update on where we're at in the process too. Usually do that on the schedule, but I feel like I didn't give you much information here, so I'll talk a little bit more on this slide. We did send the worksheets out to staff, so everybody has their budget request worksheets. They're working through them. My goal at the March meeting is to at least be able to tell you what the requests are in totality. They would not have been fully vetted yet, so we'll still be working through there. But at least we could start having kind of some harder numbers at the discussion workshop in March. So. Just a little kind of reminder on, our financial goals and kind of the way we approach every budget cycle for the last 10 years or more. One, first and foremost is developing a balanced budget that meets the operational needs of the community. As we all know, we're trying to manage increase in expenses left and right. I mean, They keep saying inflation's at 2-3%, but I've not seen it. Seems like every time you turn around, costs have gone up in every place that you could imagine. And so trying to manage that when with our funding constraints and our revenue sources that we discussed. And then most important thing is the growth of our operating and capital funds. We do have a 10-year capital plan that provides level funding. I know Station 4 is going to throw that thing for a little bit of a loop, given the increase in cost for construction. When we originally had our plan in there, we weren't expecting, $1,000 a square foot plus to build a fire station. Again, make sure we continue to have enough funding for our end leave reserves, and then always having sustainable financial reserves. That way, if we do have a downturn or we do have some kind of delay in funding from the federal government, we've got the resources to be able to absorb that short-term funding issues and have a kind of a planned approach if it's a longer term.
Gabe, as you're doing the capital plan, do we adjust the projections in the capital plan to reflect the changes in the cost of
And
things?
pricing.
I mean,
You're stealing my thunder. So that's part of Buzz's.
all right, Chief.
No, that's part of Buzz's report. We're doing a deep dive because our capital plan specific to apparatus is now becoming trash. It's like, because one, Corey, thanks for the article. She sent me an article about fire apparatus.
That's what I was thinking of.
And, but what we spent 3 years ago on 2 fire trucks is now what 1 costs. And our replacement schedule was based on a 12 to 18 month build time. Now it's 4.5 years. And so we're diving in and spending a lot of time figuring that out and really looking at that side of it, because it's a shell game too. I mean, we're waiting on parts for the 2 brand new trucks for a month and a half now to get them in service. And, we, other than strongly worded emails, we're at the mercy of them, and it's stuff that they did to the trucks. Or didn't do prior to arrival. And so, there's a level of frustration, but it's a lot harder to plan now, and it's not a cop out. It's just that there's too many moving parts now to it, and it costs never have gone up this high this fast.
Yeah. We had a client recently purchase an engine, and it basically came with you had to acknowledge that if the prices increase more than their CPI metric, they could now adjust the price. So now you're agreeing to purchase an engine that won't be built for 36 months at an unknown price in the future.
So how we capture that in a capital plan that makes sense to you and is as close to reality as possible is where Gabe's very helpful. But it's difficult because it's a weird world.
Mm-hmm.
Ford pickups a little bit easier, but yeah, it's baffling to me.
Thank you.
And then the last piece is just kind of overview of the schedule. I realized when I looked at this, I don't think we have our all-day workshop or our deep dive workshop, I should say, that we're planning for in early May. But we got the budget documents out, as I mentioned, this past week. Pretty much from now through beginning of March, program managers will be developing their budgets, working with supervisors. And then the goal is to have those to supervisors beginning of March, and then by the 10th to finance, so we can load the budget. That should give us time. Like I said, that gives about a week, business week, to get it loaded in the shell and at least start talking higher numbers, top line numbers with you guys. So you start to get an idea of, what we're looking at from a budget standpoint. So we'll have that presentation in March. April will be really, more refined presentation of the budget numbers. I hope by the time we have that April meeting, we don't have much more. We've refined the numbers. There's not a lot more movement going on other than maybe waiting for health insurance or workers' comp quote, something like that. We'll have placeholders in there, but waiting for those final quotes to come in. We'll kind of do, like I said, it's not in here. We'll do that deep dive with the board in early May. And then at the May board meeting is when we'll ask for tentative adoption of the budget. That triggers our 20-day posting. And then we'll come back at the June board meeting, hold a public hearing on budget, and then ask for final adoption. Just from a procedural standpoint, once you tentatively adopt, we cannot increase the budget without reposting for another 20 days, but we could always decrease it after that. So again, so far, I've not heard anything weird coming through the legislator that's going to throw some weird things off in health insurance or workers' comp or something. So that's the only thing that sometimes has delayed us getting some quotes on those things until later in the budget process. But I anticipate by April, we should have the majority of it wrapped up.
Yeah, for example, last year, I believe it was a legislative mandate to require MDMA therapy for post-traumatic stress. And while there was a group of folks that agreed with it, the issue was you shouldn't pigeonhole to one treatment modality, and you should have options. And the fact that the legislation, it would have impacted workers' comp rates, but it was so specific to one treatment that it didn't pass. But we don't have anything super awkward like that this year.
Plus that treatment's illegal.
Yeah, well, there's that. Well, anytime you prescribe one route for one process, it doesn't make sense. You should have options, but and to mandate it, to make it a mandated workers' compensable event, that's what kind of messed with the numbers. Is this going to happen or not? It happened a few years ago. The legislature, it was a good one. They passed a occupational cancer bill, presumptive cancer legislation, but it was unfunded. So it threw the work comp world for a loop because it was costly. It almost buried some work comp programs because of the impact. And then of course, COVID, but yeah, so that's looking better. Ish.
Gabe, could you send those slides to the board so we
Yes.
have them? That'd be great. Thank you.
That's all I have for you. So any questions? Anything specific from the board?
Any questions? No. Okay.
All right, thank you.
Gabe, thank you. All right, so we'll conclude the budget workshop and go to the regular business meeting. Chief, do we have any speakers who wish to speak from the public?
No, not today.
Okay, great, okay. All right, and so now the consent agenda. Hopefully the board received the items in the consent agenda and have had a chance to review them. Are there any questions or anything about that? Okay, if not, then I will entertain a motion to approve and pass the consent agenda.
I move to approve the January 21st regular and executive minutes on the consent agenda.
A second.
Second, great. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Okay, Mr. Bolger, our financial report.
All right.
Back again.
Are we the slides in? Now I can pull it up and share again. Yeah, okay. Nice. All right. You guys have the January financial report in the packet. Starting off, tax levy revenue was a little behind what we've seen historically. We brought in 753,000 for the month. There's about 190,000 under what we budgeted. I don't get, again, too nervous at this point if we're sitting here in May and we've not seen second half taxes. I'll be a little bit more concerned, but again, we kind of use a historical average to gauge this, and a lot of factors can throw it off, even just like banking cutoff times, from when the bank pushes the money. So a little bit of a variance, but none too concerning at this point. Non-levy revenue was strong. We brought in 417,389. We were under budget by 149,000. Couple things driving that. One of the biggest ones, as I kind of mentioned in the previous report, is our interest earnings. We brought in, just for the month alone, we brought in $127,000. We were pretty conservative on our budget last year. We only budgeted $250,000 in interest earnings, and through January, we're at $626,000. So again, that's gonna help us fund a lot of these capital things and pay for the double the price of trucks as we've discussed. So it's always nice to have kind of your money make some money for you as well. Another big driver was we received a reimbursement from FEMA for deployment during Hurricane Helene. So it's also a big driver there. Expenses, we're looking pretty good on expenses overall. For the month, we're at $1,569,000 in expenses. As you can see, we've actually kind of hit under budget across all of our major categories. Buildings and land, a little bit of a spike just from, again, a lot of the maintenance going on, as well as the appraisal fee we paid to CBRE hit in the month. And then managerial, we're under in totality within that category, but we were over slightly on our professional fees. One, some timing on our fees related to the Medicare audit that we completed last calendar year, but that was billed in January. The regular audit fees, and then we also had to double up on ambulance billing collection fees that hit in the month of January. Next slide. Did we lose our year-to-date one? I guess we did. Okay. As far as percent of expense, I'll talk through it from there. We've expended 44% of our budget with 56% remaining. Couple things I want to highlight, and you've got the actual financials in the packet, but our total revenues at 3.2 million through the month of January. That is over budget by 1.1 million. Again, property tax collection still behind by about that 200,000 that we saw this month. So we'll just kind of watch that. But non-levy revenue is strong. We're over budget by 1.1 million. Our ambulance revenue is performing very well compared to budget. We're over by about 300,000 on that alone through January. In addition, our interest income that I mentioned before is kind of the two main drivers. Looking at expenses, our expenses are at $12,937,000. We're under budget by 421,000, and that's why you see, we're more than halfway through the year, and we still have more than half of our budget remaining. So, okay. Breakdown: personnel are our highest expense at 85% of our total expenditures, followed by operations at 7%. And both communication and managerial are at 4%. And then finally, year-over-year cash position, we ended the month with 22.9 million total cash on hand. That's an increase of about 3.7 million over the prior year. Our other assets decreased slightly from 25.3 to 24.1, mainly due to just a function of our annual depreciation expense on our assets. Yes.
Yeah. On those assets, you mentioned we are doing nicely with interest income from the money that the state holds for us, but do we also earn interest on this cash?
Yeah, so all that not the full 22.9 million. We've got, of that 22.9, there's about 1 million sitting in Chase accounts. That's just our normal churn for cash flow. Those aren't interest-bearing accounts. So really, we've got 20 million sitting in interest-bearing accounts at all time. And what we do is we leave it in those accounts. We just pull for cash flows on typically a monthly basis. Sometimes we may pull a little sooner if we need.
With a decent interest rate?
Yes, right now. Fed lowers rates, we'll start to see that drop off again, because again, they're in short-term investments.
They're short-term CDs,
Short-term CDs, money markets, bonds. It's the county treasurer invests the money on our behalf. So they're limited, obviously, from a statute standpoint to be in any equities or any kind of high risk investments. So yeah, no crypto. No. And then finally, liabilities increased from 33.1 to 33.59, and what's pushing that up is our unfunded liability for PSPRS. That went up year over year. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions in the boardhouse.
then I will, if there are no questions, then I will take a motion to approve the financial report. Do I have such a motion? Well, then I guess I better make it myself. So I hereby move to approve the January 2024 finance report. Do I hear a second? Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passed. All right. Chief Mizoulis, it's over to you and your team.
All right, so both Chief Coyle and Chief Lukowski are on vacation today, managing some house problems. It's not really vacation, so nothing bad, just cost of ownership. So, significant events, crews have just been plugging through. We haven't had a lot of hike out related stuff, and we had a little uptick in non-medical rescues that we weren't involved in, which is kind of neat because the county is doing their thing. The county's got the volunteer search and rescue, and they bring the sheriffs out, and we've had a few of those this month where we weren't involved, and we don't need to be. We don't need all the glory. And then with human resources, we've got open again the IT position. We've got Kiona just parroted down 100 apps down to 100 resumes down to about 22, and then it'll move on to IT for review, and hopefully we'll get somebody. Big thing Chief Coyle's been working on is the how do I say it? The very public lawsuit that the district's engaged in, as you saw in the paper, probably has taken up a lot of time as we work towards conclusion. And he will be representing the district as it moves forward on our behalf. And then getting the CAPS test, Jordan can attest the fact that that's soaked up a lot of time. We've got 8 candidates testing, and there's 8 evaluatable areas, and you have to build the shell for each of them. And so he's been working a lot on that, just from the, what I would say the simplest things to oral board questions to Jordan building 100, a test that's validated through across a bunch of references and everything else. So we've just been really working on that. And then 3 of our 4 new firefighters have gotten through all of the background and onboarding stuff. So they're sealed, the deal's sealed with 3 of the 4. So waiting on 1 more. That one just came into the mix late because we had an unexpected retirement of an engineer. So we snuck in another one so we don't have that vacancy coming into the summer season. And so as long as everything goes well, we'll have all 4 ready for end of March to get started. And then we'll have a full staff complement for the fire season, which is important. And then go on to Kirk.
Good afternoon. So I kind of expanded this screen out a little more than what we usually do, just so you get a little better picture of what all goes on in community risk. It's been very, very busy. So I could squeeze all those into an inspection, but that breaks out the inspection into more than it really is. You do a sprinkler inspection, you got to rough in, but make sure it's all installed correctly before they ever cover it up. Then the finals when it's done. Then we final the house, and if it's in the wildland interface, there's another final there. So there's actually 4 inspections for 1 residence. And the residence could be anywhere from the village to the 525 out in the middle of the edge of our district. We've been out there doing them. So it eats a lot of time. So I just threw that up there just so you can see. We didn't do a lot of them. We did 7 of them, but that's 7 of them that could have been anywhere from 4 hours to 8 hours in time totals. Sprinkler modifications, we got a couple of those going on right now. The hotel down here at the corner, they're totally gutted and redid. They're all for 6 buildings. And that's going to be a time crunch when they get ready to final that, because it's going to take probably a day or 2 for 2 of us to do it. We have to make sure every single room is ready to go before they occupy. So that's just up there for that. The Firewise stuff is really picked up. I have been dealing with phone calls daily and walk-ins daily, approach daily on Firewise, everything from going out to subdivisions and looking at their fire hydrants to see if their little water system could be an advantage to us because they want to help, to just teaching Firewise. With that in mind, we do have a wildland urban Firewise assessors course coming to Sedona. And that'll be on March 20th at the Yavapai title. And they were supposed to send me the slide today, but I haven't got it yet. And when I get that, I'll get that out to everybody. I know the city has a few people that want to attend to be assessors. It's a one-day class and there's 30 seats available. And I have a feeling they'll fill it up. There's enough people interested in that. It's a good class and it'll teach you how to make your house hardened. It'll teach you the whole Firewise thing. Usually they end the day by going to a residence and actually walking in and doing one. So that's put on by the state fire.
I wanted to mention, based on some, I know that a couple of you attended the city council meeting last week, and a lot of folks expressed concern about the parking garage, and Sedona Fires has fully reviewed the plans and they are in compliance with all applicable codes and NFPA standards.
Yes. And on that note, site visit up there, park is, it's not really up there for some reason, but I attend bi-weekly meetings with the Forest Road Extension. I have been since it started, and also now with the parking garage, which is about to start. And by me going to those, a lot of times I don't need to be there, and if I don't, I'll leave. But every now and then they come across with something that'll catch my attention that I have to address, and I'll address it right then, because they're not thinking the way we think about public safety. They're just thinking about building that building and making it look pretty.
And I wanted to park on that for a minute and make it clear that we are engaged with the construction process and we are ensuring that everything is compliant. So if there's another narrative out there, it's untrue.
Yeah, those two are going on. I also meet with the city of Sedona for other things also. The other thing we've been working on too is the IGA fee alignments for Copper Canyon, Verde Valley, and us. So we're all kind of aligned. We got all our fees laid out. Been meeting weekly on that with Nate Bailey, fire marshal down there. That's coming along. Upcoming events. Well, actually, we did a fire extinguisher training at the airport the first part of January and got the whole staff through that. Worked out really good. Used our prop. That works really nice. No mess, no fuss. Makes noise. Looks just like a real fire extinguisher, and it's good. Half the people know how to use them, but the other half have never had one in their hands. So it's a good training for that. And upcoming events looks like, the wildfire mitigation cleanup. I haven't got the flyers out, but it's not on this. Sorry, didn't get it there. We do have the dates knocked down. It is going to be April 26th and 27th in the village of Oak Creek, and May 3rd and 4th in West Sedona. That'll be at the West Sedona School in the parking lot by the pool. And this has all been shot out on social media and sent out to the HOAs. I'm going to get stuff posted out there and get the word out early. And then just kind of shoot it out every month so everybody knows it's coming. Because last year, people in the village were saying they didn't really know about it. But I want to make sure they get the word this time.
Where in the village is it?
This will be behind the factory outlet stores in that parking lot, right behind it in the back. That's where we do it.
No cactus.
No
cactus.
cactus, please. It's not fun. So there's your parking garage right there. That picture doesn't do it justice. If you ever see it in person and see, you can't even see the top of those track hose standing on the road. Is that massive? But they are getting ready to start moving forward on that.
Yeah, excavation's complete, like for the most part now. It's
Yeah.
starting to form up and
Yeah,
pour.
they're securing, they're called soil nails, and they're shotcreting and securing all that rock all the way around it. And then they'll get in there and start working. concrete company is gonna make a killing on this one. So. And what else we got? In case you didn't know, St. Patrick's Day is coming. The parade is on March 15th. And the city is doing a City of Sedona celebration of spring in April. And there's a lot of little events going on too in the next couple of months. Mostly a couple of runs for the woods, the Cocodona, the Vortex Ultra Experience.
That's a new one.
Yeah, they're coming out of the woodworks now.
So for those of you that aren't familiar, the Cocodona is a 250-mile foot race that starts in Black Canyon City and ends in Flagstaff. And they run it, the course alters a little bit, but basically they run over the top of Mingus Mountain through Jerome and then up through Cottonwood, and then they run through Sedona and then cross the street somewhere in 89A, and then they have one of a few routes where they end up on top of Wilson Mountain or on top of Snebley, and it's amazing.
How many miles is it?
250-mile foot race. And
Is it a relay?
no, and it's
And there's stopping
Extreme
points.
and I'll make sure to get you guys the link, but every runner is GPS tracked. And then it's linked to their bio and you can see their progress and everything. It's pretty insane. The last year, I think the winner averaged a 14-minute mile consistently for 250 miles.
Whoa.
And it's baffling to me that people are capable of doing it. But when it first came to Sedona, there was all this concern. Oh, we're gonna have all the. I'm like, no, these people trained to run 250 miles. Like they don't need us. They don't need the ambulance. I don't believe we've ever had a call related to the Cocodona since it started. But
Does it take them?
They have their own.
I think last year the winner did it in 4.5 days. I got to double check that. You'll be blown away. And there's people in their late 70s doing it.
Yeah.
And it's insane.
And they must get time in between
Yeah.
to sleep.
Yes.
Well, they have periodic spots to hydrate and eat and sleep if they choose to. But if you watch them, their breaks are usually like a little 1-2 hour blocks, and then they just keep going. I'm telling you, like we get locked into it for a couple days because I'm blown away by the athleticism. I don't even like driving 250 miles.
And the Vortex one is the same thing as the one that I was at a few years. I didn't do it, but I was standby with. You sign up for it in the morning, you take off for like 12, 14-mile runs through the forest. When they got back, they were beat. So it was pretty nutty. So with that, a safety message for that, since we're having summer and winter, days are summer, nights are winter. If you're out there running the trails, make sure you're hydrated, make sure you plan for the weather, make sure you plan for the nightfall, because it's gonna get cold. This is still winter. And be safe out there. And that's all I got, unless you have any questions for me.
Well, I don't know if this is the right time to ask, but where are we on the scheduling of the city's event around 550?
It's gonna be the first week of April. They're waiting on a couple more feedbacks. It looks like April 2nd's the favored day, but again, waiting for a couple of stakeholders to respond to the need to meet or the doodle. I forget what you used. And then the intent is to host it at the SPAC, the Performing Arts Center. And the district's gonna pick up the rental fees for it, and then they're coordinating some other stuff. So we've got a resident lined out to be the moderator. They anticipate the need for a moderator. Yes. But what we will do is speaking with Department of Forestry and Fire Management and the U.S. Forest Service, our intention is to align our message with those two entities. So we have a fire message, and then the city and the county sheriff will anchor into more of the evacuation education, and then APS will hopefully discuss the mechanism they use to determine when they're going to shut power down and why. And then the water companies are going to discuss their capacity and availability and so forth. Is kind of the vision. obviously can't control what those other entities, how they message their message, but our intent is from the fire side is to align our message on the opportunity for Firewise and for fire hardening your home and so talk about the resources available typically and what you can do as a homeowner and as a resident to harden your home against fire is kind of the message we want to put out there.
Thank you.
All right, Buzz. Fleet, our new mechanic is hitting the ground running, doing a great job. I mentioned that the 2 trucks that we're waiting on parts for, and our Type 6 is in state, and it should be here in the next couple weeks. They too, the factory neglected to do some of the work, and so the way our trucks work now, for the most part, based that article, it's right on point. But Rev Group bought out Boise, where we get most of our wildland trucks. So Hughes is the local dealer, if you will, and every apparatus comes to Hughes for final, and then comes to us. Well, we're waiting on parts for the Type 1s, and in the Type 6, they didn't. The new Fords automatically shut off after 30 minutes, and there's a reprogramming you have to do, and that wasn't accomplished at the factory. So that's what our holdup is. Yes, I'm frustrated.
Yeah.
Because it seems like kind of the package. You don't want to truck out in the forest with the guys hiking 500 yards in to put out fire and have the truck shut off. It's kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
GIS, Spinelli's continuing to work with partners and partnering agencies. We're doing some mapping, some parcel mapping and some other things, and just keeping busy. IT kind of falls into my lap, but I'll talk about it.
Sorry, Chief.
Go ahead.
Is it appropriate for me to ask a few questions about the truck purchase?
Please, and thank you.
I'm sure you expected me to do it. Is it, I mean, of course, all of our AMBOs are the diesel
Mhm.
platform, and they are 450 and 550. Four-wheel drive.
450.
And that's perfectly appropriate. Is there a reason why we spec the gas burners for the wildland support trucks?
This one is a Type 6 and it's a diesel.
Okay, well, I was looking at the quote from Sanderson.
Oh, the one for this board meeting?
Yeah.
That's a mechanic. And that's what they have.
Oh,
available.
you're getting a second mechanic truck, are you?
It's a replacement, scheduled replacement.
Okay,
But don't steal the thunder for that.
sorry about this. As I was, Chief, thank you.
Yeah, typically we shotgunned our REM truck, our rapid extrication module. We configured as a gas, and it's been less than optimal.
Yeah, anyway, please.
Yeah. So IT internally, our project managers getting work going on the generators and the infrastructure stuff. There's a few ways to skin that cat, and we're landing on the best one. And in conjunction with that, and with concern from the city, we've been meeting, and we've aligned our upgrade so that the city and the fire district's upgrade are gonna kind of come at the same time. And it really shouldn't do much to modify our capital outlay for what we had planned to do. There might be a couple things that are sped up. One unexpected cost is, it seems the best practice would be to have a team come out and just do it. I mean, and to do the switch over, if you will, you have to have 2 people per radio site and somebody in dispatch to do all the stuff. And it was an anticipated but unexpected cost, but I think it will ensure that we align with the city and hopefully see some cost savings with implementation of the new system, because they'll be able to do both at the same time. And then, as stated, we're working on that second IT position to give Josh some relief. And Justin and Johnny, the 2 radio techs, are halfway through a tower certification class, so we can get Bob off the towers, because we don't need him climbing up them being the solo soldier.
Chief, just before you move off that,
Yes.
I want to thank you for your involvement and effort in the IT world with the city, and for helping Bob move that forward and make it happen. Because I think it really did clear the way for our purchase.
I-
So
I
thank
thi-
you.
I appreciate that. And it's just a lot of passionate people that want to see some stuff completed, and it's just taking the time to align. And so that we can work with each other and hopefully save some money. And then it allowed Bob some freedom to dive into some of the less expensive fixes to their current system issues with, down to simple antennas and things they could change out. So it's been a good process, but for that mental health, everything's going great. It's going really good. We're meeting with them this week to talk about how they're managing stuff. They've really become they have great clinicians, and then Corey probably knows best, when you have a practice, there's a business side to it too. You just can't do the fun stuff. There's the crummy stuff in there, working through some of that. We do have scheduled for next month, in conjunction with Copper Canyon and Verde Valley Fire, we're doing a spouses academy, and it's an evening and a day, and we're providing daycare and bringing all those who provide benefits to us up to one spot, and creating an environment where those that don't get the message all the time from their husbands or wives that work here, giving them the opportunity to really understand what benefits they have available to them, whether it's mental health, healthcare, retirement, so on and so forth. So it'll be a lighthearted affair with, like I said, daycare provided, so that the wives and husbands that come can focus on learning instead of the kids running around. So I'm excited for it.
Has that
Great.
happened before? That sounds incredible.
We haven't done it to this extent, though. I just think it's important because most of our guys, me included, get our packet every year of, oh, this is the healthcare stuff, and then we go home and throw it in a drawer. My wife doesn't have a clue. She's just, where's my new card? This is all she asks. So, and more importantly for me, I think that, we've talked before throughout the Verde Valley, it's more so at the other agencies, but 50 to 60% of our workforce has less than 10 years on the job. And when like Jordan and Kirk and I started here, it was much more organic. I knew everybody that worked at Copper Canyon. I knew everybody that worked at Verde Valley. I knew everybody that worked at Cottonwood, and that's just not the case anymore. And I think some of our legacy spouses, getting to meet some of the younger spouses and let them know that, hey, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. There's resources available. I think it'll be a good thing. So Buzz is helping put that together with Kiona. And then EMS, there's a level of frustration because we've never had a better environment within AH, and a lot of the opportunities we have to improve our service delivery could be upended with current legislative pushes. So all parties involved are hesitant to make any moves, aggressive. I don't mean aggressive in a bad way, but make any solid moves towards different solution sets, because that we in rural Arizona are the victims of problems they're having in the metropolitan areas. The hospital systems are pushing for these CON changes. The hospital systems up here don't see the value in it. And the trickle down, NAH already owns an ambulance company, Guardian, and Guardian has been clear they can barely staff in Flagstaff, let alone try to move down into the Verde Valley. And so there's some hesitancy to move forward with that, but Buzz is just plugging away at continuing to build those relations regionally and do what we can. And then internally, last month, all of our crews, Phoenix Children's Hospital got a grant, and they have a Simbulance. It's a simulation ambulance. It's hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of high-tech stuff. And they brought up their ambulance for a week, and all of our crews went through a pediatric, scenarios with this ambulance. And then it's kind of neat that he coordinated a deal at a Sedona Medical Center where we took a sick kid there, and it wasn't a surprise, but the scenario was a surprise, and had to see how we integrated bringing a sick kid to the ER staff there in Sedona. And so all accounts, it was a great learning experience, and exposed our folks to some new tools that we don't have in our chest. So they're working on that. But I will brag on, so one of the instructors for this Simbulance is a good friend of Buzz and I's. And so my point of that is she tells it how it is. She didn't pull punches towing the company line. And she did say that our folks were some of the most engaged and professional because this grant statewide, they've already done 250 people across the state. And they said this is one of the more professional organizations they dealt with. And I didn't expect any different, but it was nice to hear from somebody because she has no reason to fluff us up. We're friends and she tells me how it is. So it was pretty neat to hear. But that's that. We'll move on to Jordan if there aren't any questions.
Questions? No. Jordan, you're up.
Chair, board, thank you for having me this evening.
Jordan's been slacking.
Sorry, I apologize. I was not here the last board meeting. Did want to touch on our battalion, all 3 battalion live fire training that we did hold in December. And it may have been mentioned last board meeting, but the first time in my 23 plus years here, we were able to run all of our operational staff through live fire training, all in 1 week, which was a heavy lift. Thanks to Chief Mazulis for allowing me to special detail 2 of our firefighters that are also live fire instructors to help get that set up. And we were able to run 80 plus employees through live fire scenarios in 1 week. So we only missed 3 individuals. So it was quite an accomplishment. Staff did a good job being timely and energized and excited to take part in it. And it's actually the first live fire we've done since 2017. So we were able to get everybody back on track, and now we'll start doing every 3-year rotation for the battalion. So an entire shift will go through every 3 years. So just wanted to mention that. They may have touched on it last board meeting. For the current month, we just completed we got a couple notes here that didn't make the slide, but captain position task book evaluations. We did complete the last one of those, which is required for individuals to test for the captain position, which Chief Mazulis talked about. We'll be hosting the assessment center all next week. So proud to say we do have 8 individuals that will take part in that assessment center. So we're excited for that. It's a lot of work getting that planned and making sure we have the correct number of internal and external evaluators and facilities set up. It's been a heavy lift the last couple months, 2.5 months getting that ready, but I'm excited to see how it goes next week.
Jordan,
Yes,
you
ma'am.
mentioned, the chief mentioned that there's like 8 different pieces.
There are, and without divulging too much information, though, there's different scenarios which each candidate will be graded on. So there's a set number of situations, if you will, or exercises, if you will, that all 8 of them will be required to go through and then be scored on each one of those, compiling a final score for all 8 individuals, where they'll be ranked on a list. So I don't want to give up too much information, but yes, so there's,
Some point that's appropriate. I would be very interested
yes, ma'am.
in the components of that.
Yeah, I think by next Thursday or Friday, Chief Mazulis.
Super secret. Sorry. You need to know.
be very-
After it's done.
Very happy to share that with you, but it is very in-depth.
I'll park on that for a second. It based on scars from the past, up into and including each module, if you will, each station is assigned a certain percentage of the overall score. And I'll have that docu-signed and vetted before the test starts. So there's no question that, oh, so-and-so did good, so we're going to make the written test worth more, and it's a very, these promotional exams are career-changing events, more than anything else that we do. And
That's why
organiza-
when it's appropriate, I'd love to see.
Absolutely. Smoke and mirrors, magic tricks.
Chief Mazulis also mentioned the new hire orientation or academy that we're holding this spring. It's typical. We usually do one a year, but as needs arise, we need to do another one. And here we are. So we'll be running 4 individuals through that. March 31st is their official start date. I got the invitation to Kim, so we'd like to invite you all for the potluck again on the first day. That's been a big hit. For those new board members, we bring the board members in and do a potluck, get to know the new 4 employees and have one-on-ones with them. And
It's fun. We do it their first day, so they're just
Yeah,
blurry eyed.
feedback's been great from that. The last 2 academies that I've been fortunate to create, I guess, facilitate. Guys do most of the instruction, but I've asked for feedback after each of those 2, received that feedback and made changes, and it's getting to where it's pretty streamlined now, which is nice. So when it's a last minute, unexpected 3-week orientation arises, it's plug and play. was my intent moving into this position throughout training. So
And
Um,
I'm sorry, I
yes, ma'am.
didn't get the date.
March 31st is the start date, and that'll be the potluck date, March 31st. So they'll run 3 consecutive weeks, 5 days a week. They do have the weekends off. The first week I changed it to, we used to bounce them around all over the place for 3 weeks, and we lost a lot of valuable training time just commuting, as you well aware with the traffic. So week 1 is here at Station 1. Week 2 is at the Regional Training Fire Center in Cottonwood, and week 3 will be at Station 3 in the Village of Oak Creek. And each week has a different theme to it. So their week 1 is administrative roles and responsibilities, benefits, payroll, a lot of the software training that they need to know, as well as EMS. Week 2 is all suppression and extrication related down at the training center. So I've already got the cars delivered. They're already set up. We're ready to go. Week 3 will be at Station 3, and that's our special ops week. So we'll go over driver's training, wildland training, and then rope training with them. So we try to keep in one static location so we're not losing valuable training time bouncing around to different facilities throughout the day. And it's been well received.
I think I might have another volunteered vehicle for training.
All right.
It's a newer crossover SUV. It's intact and it's fully functional.
You guys will surely appreciate that. So yeah, so that's planned. The schedule's set. We've got everybody confirmed for the instructors for each of those days, each of the 15 days, and telestaff's been taken care of. So we're just waiting on the 4 now, and we'll be ready to go for that as well. I've set up a regional training officer meeting. So I've been trying for the last year to get that set up and finally got it set up. So we'll be meeting March 5th. And I'm going to try to make that a quarterly meeting with all the other training officers from each of the neighboring agencies and start looking at ways to regionalize training so we can participate more interagency and get more familiar with our partners and kind of standardize training moving forward when we show up on mutual and auto aid events, structure fires, extrication, rescue calls.
And I wanna beyond the interoperability piece, I don't know if I even communicated this to you. We've had some unintended consequences of the desire to train more frequently regionally. And one example is last week, our law enforcement partners in Cottonwood did some drills at our fire training center and used CS gas for their drill. Well, the high school program went in there 3 days later and just to spray some water, practicing their skill sets, and it atomized the CS gas. And no, it wasn't known that we had that training the 3 days prior. So it's also helping us establish some protocols and procedure to prevent high school kids from getting tear gassed again. That's kind of a big deal.
We're going to work, part of that agenda for that meeting is set up a regional training calendar so we know who's using the facility and when, so there's no conflict in training. Because obviously it's a heavier lift for us to get down there to train than it is, say, Cottonwood, who's 2 miles down the road. So good relationships with all the training officers. So we're going to look at creating a regional master training calendar. So those conflicts don't occur moving forward, hopefully, or at least limit them. Going off the slide, we completed our makeup drivers training. So again, last year implemented an annual driver's training for all of our operational staff. We were able to complete that. The B shift extrication training was held. So similar to the live fire that I talked about, that's every 3-year rotation. A battalion will go through an annual extrication drill, different scenarios set up. This was the 2nd year. Last year was A shift. B shift just completed theirs, and now C shift will do theirs, and then we'll switch the scenarios up and start that 3-year rotation moving forward again. So all those have gone really well. The 2025 ISO and OSHA mandated training is out to all the crews, actually the whole department, because the administrative staff is involved in that as well. Happy to say last year we got all our staff through that. We've got it recorded. So if an audit does come up, we've got those records to show that we've completed that training in various aspects of
Federal laws,
laws and regulations. Just completed the quarterly blue card training last week. Battalion Chief Lewis is kind of leading the charge on that. We implemented blue card 9 years ago, and did a really good job initially. And we're kind of working through the weeds on how to better prepare staff and better train staff with that. So he's really taken the bull by the horns, and we're doing quarterly blue card training, which consists of us going to each of the stations. I helped him out last week and running our crews through simulator training for structure and commercial fires. So getting common terminology, making sure everybody's on the same page and just kind of standardized process moving forward. I think they're doing it right now. The wildland refresher is ongoing. I believe they're upstairs doing one of the last ones this week. So tried to move that up earlier in the year, as Chief Mazulis mentioned. It have the potential for a significant wildfire season. So we want to get everything done earlier this year than normal.
I wanted to, and a lot of this is for the benefit of the new board members. So it's RT 130 is the federal class. It's wildland refresher. And there's no requirement that we as a structural fire department maintain what's called a red card. We choose to have all our operational members be red carded. It's the federal standard that they all adhere to. And so technically a lot of organizations around the state fire districts will red card the folks that are signed up for the wildland team to go out. But because of our wildland urban interface here, we made the decision 2 decades ago for our organization in operations to adhere to the federal NWCG standards. And I think it's critical because our entire community is in the forest, and we ought to have a heightened sense of understanding of wildland and urban interface fighting. So that's why we put so much time in. In fact, like our engine bosses and anybody that's qualified above the basics of wildland firefighting, their credentials go to the state DFFM for approval. We just don't say, yeah, this guy has a red card or this gal has a red card. We have like our engine bosses that take the trucks out. It goes to state for review and approval. So we add that layer as well.
Also helps us meet those standards for those off-district deployments that Gabe was talking about earlier. So we're making sure all our guys are red card certified, meet those standards inside our state of Arizona.
You know, when you have the event in April, I think a few things like that should be part of what we talk about.
Oh, it's on the list.
Right.
Just really, really validating the why of what we do.
But also the strength of what we have in our community, which is not true of every community.
So moving on, the quarterly MCSs, the minimum company standard evaluations that we started about a little over a year ago. The email will be going out to crews tomorrow. So we've got that planned for the middle of March. So again, for those that are unaware, we'll rotate every company in the district. So all 15 companies will come through and do the same minimum company standard to make sure there's no deficiencies. If there's any deficiencies, we'll reschedule it to BC. They have time to go out and retrain and then come back to be evaluated at a further date. So just making sure, again, everybody meets those minimum company standards that we've established here at Sedona Fire. Captain's Assessment Center is next week, Monday through Wednesday. We also, now that we're getting past the captain's testing, this last year we really concentrated on prepping those individuals and helping those individuals that will be testing next week. Likewise, next February will be engineer testing. So it really never stops. Again, it's on a 3-year rotation. So this year we'll really be concentrating on a lot of the engineer candidates, one of which requirement they have in the task book is to get certified on our ladder truck. So in March, Captain Kurtz, Engineer Fisher, and soon to be Engineer Moore will be putting on that class to get all those individuals signed off in their position task books to be qualified to drive and operate our ladder truck. So again, we don't just say, hey, you're a firefighter off probation, go drive the ladder truck. We don't allow that. So they have to run through a pretty in-depth 8-hour course for that day and then some continuing education on top of that to get their task book signed off for that specific skill set before they can test for engineer. After which time, once they get that done, we'll be doing position task book evaluations for the position of engineer probably in April sometime. So all those individuals that are working on their task books, once they're completed, they have to run through a full evaluation after that, written test and practical test, before they're actually qualified to move up as an engineer and operate apparatus in district as an engineer. Extrication training in Corona, California. So this is almost an all expense covered training for our instructors for our extrication program. So we'll be sending 2 of those instructors out there. They leave the end of next week. And like I said, the class itself covers most of the expenses for us. It's a great training. Individuals go out to get new technology, new skill set, get to cut up on some newer cars. I think I shared some last year, the newer Mercedes Benz and stuff that were donated for them to cut on. Then they're also required to run what they call a pit. So they're in charge of that drill. So they actually get hands-on practice instructing out there before they come back and instruct our individuals on shift. So one of the individuals that's going out there is one of our new firefighters that expressed an interest in this program. And we're already getting him in the fold and getting him going. As far as instructing, he helped with the class last month as well. So excited to see that happen. Real quick, we have 3 career fairs and expos planned. We did participate in one. Rydell was at the last one, which was in Prescott Valley at Yavapai College. It was a health career fair. Chief Missoula talked about Matt Spinelli and GIS being busy. That's one of the things I asked him if he could help with, and he jumped all over it, done a great job, put together a recruit career fair expo training kit for us. So we've got all the supplies in one spot so we can grab them and go. So they went over there last week in Prescott Valley. We've got one next Friday at the Sedona Red Rock High School. And then the beginning of March at Yavapai College in Cottonwood. So just trying to extend our reach out into the different parts of the community for future recruitment of future firefighters and GIS and CRR professionals. So it's not just fire only. We try to expose them to all the different aspects they can get involved in the fire service, specifically to Sedona Fire. So excited about those opportunities. The wellness activities, repairs of older equipment, our gym equipment, is ongoing. It's always ongoing. We've done a good job the last few years getting a lot of the older archaic equipment out, getting some new technology, new equipment in place, continuing to work on that. Annual physicals are ongoing this spring. Hopefully we'll be buttoned up by April is the plan, into March, April. And then I'm still working with Kiona on tracking injuries and the associated costs that go along with those injuries, hopefully in turn bringing down those worker comp premiums in the future. So we're always constantly looking at that, created a lot of awareness tools for our staff, and always looking at different prevention measures we can take to decrease those on the job injuries and eventually hopefully reduce the cost of workers comp. So I think that's all I've got. Do you have any questions? It is a lot.
Keep you busy, yeah. Good job.
Thank you.
All right, that's a really bright picture.
So this month,
January didn't go as planned. Heavy opportunities to a lot of engagement with the city with positive outcomes as it relates to IT infrastructure. And then the city's had a lot of residents expressing concern about a lot that's going on within the city, and some of it has started to intertwine with or become intertwined with Sedona Fire. So there's been a lot of opportunities for me to engage with the city, and it's been great because we're building relationships, but we're getting a better understanding of some of the community concerns. And after the Palisades fire, the community concerns have shifted, and Kirk mentioned the inundation of CRR with requests at I-2. It has monopolized my time. I spent hours on the phone with residents. I spoke at the Sedona Patriots. I went and met with Chapel residents last week about some concerns, and then I'm speaking Sedona Women's in a couple weeks, and then the Lions Club, I'll be speaking to them, and then the request keeps coming in. Kind of the flavor I'm leaning on is the services we offer, the resources that we have, and then the piece of a personal accountability that residents have. And the one theme that I am seeing is as soon as I mention an opportunity for us to come out and do a FireWise assessment and fire harden their home, they lose interest in the conversation. A lot of and Stephanie spent, I think it was 30 minutes on the phone the other day with an angry resident about wildfire, and finally got to me. But she's a sweet person and was trying to accommodate this individual for a while. And so it's been organizational. And that's why we're aggressively pursuing, we've had a lot of meetings with staff and aggressively pursuing a common message and preparing for what I expect to be a probably threefold increase in FireWise assessment requests. There's already an uptick. Other than that, just been diving in with regional partners, evaluating, as Kirk reported the CRR IGA, and I'll talk more about that in the quarterly review. And then as part of the board's mandate, we're starting to dive into all of our vendor relationships and our contracts for service. And we've already identified 2 we're going to eliminate for this budget cycle. And we're going to continue to dive into all that. And that's kind of been the bulk of the work. In addition to meet and confer, we've had a couple kickoff and kind of philosophical meetings, and they're taking a lot more time for good reasons, because there's a lot of new folks on the team this year, and we're really getting into how the budget process works and how a lot of the stuff that Gabe's explains well, I try to puppet or parrot and with labor. And so it's I can't express the unexpected energy suck of rightfully so some very concerned citizens, but there is a swell of a common narrative, and I don't know if it's spreading on social media or through community groups, but the same questions keep coming up. So it's making my job easier in the sense of what I develop for our presentations, and because they've worked together to come up with concerns. I'll leave it at that. And here's going on to some incident numbers. Here's a different breakdown we're trying with our calls year over year. And I can answer any questions about this, but I'll briefly cover it. Fire doesn't mean the residential structure fire. It could be a report of smoke. Like last week we had I think it was a dryer smoking, so that goes out as a fire, and then you do that. So fire doesn't necessarily mean there's something burning down. The overpressure, ruptures, explosions, a lot of times that'll be, like you said, they're just one. And this could be a propane tank explosion. It could be a myriad of things. Rescues and EMS, that's our technical rescues, and in our medical calls. Hazardous conditions could be a gas spill at the gas station, or a smell of gas inside a home, or something to that effect. And then service calls, that's our second. A lot of those are lift assists, and the gravity is strong, as I've stated before, in Sedona, and we do a lot of lift assists, and we're going to continue to do a lot of lift assists. We're looking at some public education programs to reduce fall risk and educate people on some basic things they can do to reduce the risk of fall. But it is becoming nationwide. The lift assist calls are now surfacing as the quote problem in EMS. And in New York, there's some companies that are no longer doing non-medical lift assist. It's a figure it out yourself approach, which I am not advocating for Sedona Fire. Another piece is there's fire districts in Arizona that are evaluating a fee schedule for these lift assists. I also don't want to pursue that either. I think it's, we have an elderly population and the vortexes are strong. And I think it's a service we provide that is helpful to our community, because we do a lot of lift assists for non-injured people. They just can't get up. And I think it's an important service to provide. Good intent calls, I don't want to discount the importance of them, but it's I drove by and thought I saw something happening somewhere. Can you go look at it? And it's a lot of times it's in these cold mornings, it's a tractor starting up at a construction site and it kicks off smoke and they call on a fire. Or I drove by the sewer treatment plant, it smelled like sewer treatment. And so something's wrong. And so so it's a lot of those. And then false alarms, those, thankfully we haven't had too many frequent flyers. It's been, we do have a process if the same hotel keeps calling us for a faulty alarm, that there's a process where we can fine them or charge them a fee. But most of these there's a lot of them where you have a home that's occupied 2 months out of the year and they've got this whiz bang alarm system in there, and the spider web collects in the smoke detector and kicks off there. Although we get a lot of those. And then service weather, natural disaster. Well, yeah, not a lot going on this year to, this time in 2019, the creek was, overflowing and we had a lot of flood related calls and rescues, throughout the Verde Valley. And so, but we just aren't getting the weather, and like those calls are purely dependent on the weather. So we'll see what happens. Next. Oh,
It's the same thing.
just different. Okay. And then again, this is representative of each station's call volume. Again, station 1 and 3 are winning the race. Excuse me. Next. And then year over year, dispatch times going down a bit. That's a few seconds. Like I said, that's a good thing. And then our ambulance times, staying about the same. If 5 or so minutes doesn't to me tell me anything's happening, but our turnout times down a little bit. Again, meeting and response time is relative because if you have 5 calls out to the end of 525, it skews the numbers, but we're trending consistent in industry standards. So that's important for me. Next. This was pretty incredible. They, tons and tons of grocery cards to the crews. And I think it was a very nice thing that they did for us. And it was it's on the back of the Chipotle rush the month before. So this community continues to be generous, and it's pretty awesome. And everybody in the organization last month got a $20 gift card to Chipotle, and then now they got gift cards for our crews to help with groceries, and we just because our guys did their job, and then I'm not discounting it. We have a cadre that's teaching CPR now, and they're just an animated group of folks. They make it fun as you can make CPR, but they left an impression. So I just want to recognize that. I think it's pretty cool. And then now it's time.
Okay, well, it isn't quite time because I'm going to move something on the agenda. What I'd like to do is to move ahead item C under that would normally happen under reconvening, and let Board Member Cooperman do her report before we.
We do have E. My apologies. So you want to move? You want to
yeah.
move?
So
Board
after
member
we do
updates
E,
back to where it was.
yes,
Okay.
I'm humbled. Yes.
No, I just
No,
wanted to be
but
clear.
we'll do E and then we'll have Corey do her report.
Okay. So item E, this is a budgeted scheduled replacement. We've got a shop truck that it's 20 years old. It's 19 and a half years old, and it has seen its better days, and the cost to repair, we just don't believe it's worth it. It's got a lot of work to be done to it. And so this is, like I said, a budgeted scheduled replacement, and having 2 mechanics now. As you may recall, a few years ago, we bought a proper shop truck, and we had a gentleman volunteering at the time that helped us spec out quite an apparatus. And, but it's got a crane boom on it. It's a true service truck. And we found when going to our remote areas and just running up to Flagstaff for parts or Phoenix for parts or running up to the tower sites, it's unnecessary to beat that truck up, taking it off road. And so, and 2, we have 2 folks in the shop now. So the intent of this truck will be, Mr. Reese's, it'll be assigned to him, and he'll go forth and conquer and do Mike's bidding, whatever it is Mike wants him to do. But we evaluated everything from a little Ford Maverick go pick up parts truck to, and this is where we landed. It'll give the second mechanic a full complement of tools and a fuel reserve. If we have an extended incident out in the wildlife, he can go out and refuel a truck. It'll have a basic compressor on it, but it won't be to the extent our other service truck is, where it has the crane boom and a lot of the more high-tech stuff. But as stated, it's budgeted, and this is via Sanderson Ford. And it is state contract pricing. So if there aren't any questions, or I'll answer any questions.
Well, I think, we talked about just be advised that, that truck fully equipped will probably get between 4 and 5 miles per gallon.
Yeah,
It's the nature of the rig,
yeah,
It's a class 4 vehicle and it has to live in that territory. The pricing is really impressive. I did some benchmarking on GSA on that side of the house, and it's basically cost plus like 2.5.
yeah.
I was really impressed with the body. The body is if I was a private citizen and I wanted to spec that body, I'd pay double.
Yeah.
So it's an impressive vehicle. And I think that, now that, because you articulated everything quite well, that it is better. Like, back when part of the bond from 2017 was a shop, a proper upgraded shop.
Yeah.
And that didn't happen. But we were able to create a mobile shop strategy, which was benchmarked off of what Caterpillar does and like Sun State rental, it works. That kind of stuff really does work well. And now that you've mentioned what you just did about, I mean, it's a 550, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like you don't want to, use an Abrams tank to refuel. So
Now you got me down myself. 350, yeah.
yeah, it's an F-350.
Yeah, I was like, wait, no.
No, our shops are big.
Oh, yeah, that's a 550.
Yeah. So this is definitely appropriate. It's gonna have a softer ride, but it's still tough. And I looked at that out the door price and I said, man, between that Suburban, which was a bargain too, and this, there's no argument that just other than the fact that it's gonna enjoy its diet.
It's thirsty. It's thirsty.
Okay, so could I have a motion to approve the board agenda communication for the purchase of a 2025 F-350 4x4 pickup, including service body upfit in the amount not to exceed $70,000?
So moved.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's approved.
Can be a good truck.
Okay, so the next item on the agenda, I'm moving up the board member updates and ideas for future meetings. And the first item under that is an update on the First Responder Mental Health Wellness Conference that Corey attended. And just a bit of background on this. I suggested to the chief, because the fire district did pay for her to attend the conference, that is a precedent going forward, that when we pay for someone on the board to go to a conference, other than the AFCA conference, which we all can attend, that there's an opportunity for that individual to provide a brief update to the rest of the board. So.
And I just want to say it was purely selfish to support this endeavor. Joking aside, mental health and mental health support for our members is really important to me. And with Miss Cooperman's background, professional background, and her desire to want to go, I thought it was perfect because as we progressed it through the years and new opportunities arise for us to provide more mental health support to our members, she can be an advocate or an assist me in helping explain the what, because I may not articulate it as well as she could as a clinician. And so I think I appreciate you taking your time out.
Well, thank you, Chief, and thank you for authorizing my attending this conference.
She's strong.
This conference, took place last month, just a few weeks ago, and the focus was really on mental wellness for first responders, and that would, of course, include firefighters and police and dispatch and a few other related fields. The real focus was on the higher incident of PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress syndrome, is which I'm used to calling it, but PTSD, post-traumatic stress disease. And that's because of the nature of the work that we all know, where there's more trauma that can happen in the work, either physical trauma from a call or trauma from from witnessing the tragedy that can happen to some of our citizens. And so it is a risk when entering the field of firefighting. There was beautiful presentations pretty much every hour. A new specialist, either a therapist or somebody, a CEO of some of the treatment centers presented. And for the focus was on the symptoms of PTSD. And first and foremost, they talked about sleep disturbance, of difficulty going to sleep or waking up when one shouldn't, and also nightmares that can interfere with sleep in a big way. The other symptoms that commonly go and continue, there's somewhat of a continuum of sleep disturbances possibly being early on, but then as the symptoms evolve, it can be a certain hypervigilance of wanting to control one's environment more so that nothing goes wrong, basically. And then there's also can be decreased ability to control one's emotions, more hyper reactivity to other people, either being more irritable or more easily aroused to anger. And then there can be increased anxiety and depression. None of this sounds fun. None of this is good. Panic attacks can emerge, and isolation of just knowing something's wrong and not right with oneself and wanting to hide more. So there was some time spent on presenting all of that. And then it was very nice to have the conference move into treatment and how does a person begin to overcome this syndrome. And every presenter emphasized the early intervention, the need for early intervention, for being able to pick up when I'm going to use the word firefighter because that's where we are here in Sedona Fire District. So when a firefighter shows any of these symptoms or changes in habits, to be able to pick that up quickly. And they said the biggest way to do that is through the peer support program, which got talked about over and over again. And that, Chief, you've been so incredible in continuing to supporting and growing that program here. I should say, I did get to attend this with Chief Lukowski and also Captain Everline, and got to interact with them a bit. And, Captain Everline really talked about how we are in some ways more fortunate than, let's say, the police department, in that firefighters live together for 53 hours. And as a result, you can pick up changes that might go on of somebody isolating more than would be right, or becoming more irritable. You can pick up on some of that in the peer support group. People can really sit down and talk with those people. Captain Everline also talked about sharing some of his experiences with each of the crews, going around to different crews, and so that crews have a sense it's okay to talk about changes and tough calls and feeling different. So that our peer support system is just so important. The other forms of intervention, obviously, are therapy, and we have contracts with the group in Prescott to provide that. And I heard glowing reports about some of the therapists that our firefighters have access to. And part of that early intervention is also checking in on people when there is a difficult call, one that has some trauma potential in it. Then other therapies, there was a lot on other therapies, so I won't go into all of them, but obviously learning to quell or calm down one's nervous system, because PTSD is a hyper aroused, hyperactive nervous system. And so meditation, obviously, grounding techniques, including breathing, that was really emphasized, certain breathing patterns that are simple to do just for 5 minutes each morning or after a tough call, or in wanting to go to sleep, that can really soothe the nervous system. Good nutrition and a real emphasis on avoiding very much sugar and not too much caffeine, because those can actually contribute to a nervous system functioning less well. And then if those modalities don't quite do the work, then there are treatment centers. And so there were presentations from various treatment centers that specialize in PTSD treatment for first responders. And it's wonderful because they bring in they look at brain scans to look at where areas in the brain might be less functional or over functioning, and what nutritional programs and supplements can be employed to improve the brain's functioning. And along with a lot of fairly new electronic gadgets that soothe the brain activity. That some have been around for a long time, like Alpha STEM. I've known about that for a long time, but there's more advanced ones that have come on board that can be used at home to just soothe the nervous system. And they did talk about ketamine treatment being effective as well. So it was really gratifying to be there and to learn more, specifically about what can be done so that we don't have our firefighters enter into the more exaggerated phases of this syndrome.
Corey, thank you.
Thank you, Corey.
That's great. Thank you. So while we are in this section, are there any other updates from board members that you would like to share?
We did have one constituent that I already know, we have an established relationship. He commented that his homeowner's insurance, so his domicile is all over Lower Red Rock Loop. It's in a cloistered neighborhood. His homeowner's insurance was canceled. And in order to renew it, he went through, I guess, a state licensed or state promoted provide $10,000 a year. And he says, Lance, we went through every possible avenue to mitigate risk of our property, to include drilling our own well and installing a 5,000-gallon water tank on the property just for the use by fire protection. And he even went so far as to say, we're going to have a pool put in and buy one of these high pressure, like an adductor pump, and the insurance company basically said, you could have a thunderstorm hover over your house 24/7, 365. It will make no difference in your premium. That's just the way it is. And his assertion was, why can't we, or why can't they, the risk folks, do that on a case-by-case basis? And I said, well, sir, I'm ill-equipped to answer that question. I just don't know. But I will, bring it up either offline or in session. And, he lived here for a long, long time. And, my homeowner's insurance went up by almost 20%. And I probably have the most reputable insurance company you can get, USAA, but it still went up. And it is definitely kind of hitting critical mass. And if you're, financially secure enough, $10,000 a year is going to hurt, but it's not going to shut you down from owning your home.
And I can speak to that. One of the key things for this next quarter for Chief Coyle is, as the AFTA wildfire rep, the AFTA Western Fire Chiefs Consortium that they built is going to primarily focus on the fire service industry doesn't necessarily agree with the way that the fire insurance industry is mapping wildfire risk. And so they are going to engage with insurance companies and really drill into how and why they do what they do. Cause they'll just blanket statement Flagstaff and won't account for any, they'll blanket Sedona and won't account for anything. And so working on that, and then they're looking at, they're attempting to get the insurance companies to look at frequency and severity, vegetation, topography, that all the factors that we use to determine fire risk, they're trying to get the insurance companies engaged. So as we progress through the next few months, Chief Coyle will be reporting out heavily on that and hopefully get some answers that we can then get to our public. But it's not a Sedona problem. It's
That's what I told you today.
Yeah.
So one of our clients is going out for bond. And historically, when you go for bond, you get an insurance policy that basically gives you even a higher credit rating than you receive. So it basically insures the bond. So you pay even lower interest rates. One of the insurance companies wouldn't insure the bonds for a fire district because of wildfire risk. So
it's like I said, everything's bananas right now. And so, but
It's not gonna go there.
But Chief Shannon and Chief Coyle and the others, hopefully they're gonna get some steam with this, and we're gonna have something deliverable to our public, because we recognize it's a critical issue.
Chief, thank you. Madam
Yeah.
Chair, thank you for the time.
Diane, any updates you want to share?
No, not this time.
Okay. Scott?
I'm good.
Okay. Well, the only updates that I would share, I think I've shared with the rest of the board, we got a $9,900 grant from the Arizona Community Foundation for the Rescue Retriever Keep Our Pets Fire Safe project. So I'll be working with Kirk and the chief on that. The other thing, I had a query from a former volunteer, or well, not from a neighbor of a former volunteer, who told me that this volunteer is not well, and if we wanted to do anything to honor him. And so we're going to do a little something to say thank you for all your volunteer efforts. And I think that's a good way that we should pull our volunteers in and let them know they're still appreciated all these many years later. So with that, I'd like to make a motion that we go into executive session. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You want to say why?
Yeah.
And yes, I will say why.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, we'll go into executive session for personnel.
We're green.
Okay, we are now back in public session. And I'd like to begin by putting forward a motion to approve it's motion, right? Yeah, a motion to approve the fire chief's evaluation for the second quarter as we discussed in the executive session. And that the chief's performance has been excellent, and he is doing a very good job of navigating difficult circumstances and communicating a clear and important message to our public as a part of what he is doing. Do I have a seconder?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Oh, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we have a motion.
Now the tongue tie.
Oh, but I have a colleague that's helped me out here, for which I'm deeply grateful.
It's right.
All right, so, and I would like to move to authorize the chief to execute the contract for the purchase of the property. The contract is provided by the city of Sedona for the purchase of 401 Jordan Road for $2,230,000, subject to the chief's review and approval of the attachments. Do I have a seconder?
I second that.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Pass. With that, I declare this meeting closed. Thank you.
You're welcome. That was tough, right?
You would think she might have done this before.